Hey everybody, how's it going? Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com. This is the NoDQ panel, and I am being joined by three finely distinguished gentlemen from various parts of North America, and I can include Canada as part of North America because, well, it is. So we have Chris Cass, wrestling trivia expert, former champion, host. He's done all that great stuff. Also being joined by the greatest columnist, now greatest video personality in NoDQ history, Virtue's Rage, the man behind all the rage of NoDQ.com. And joining us today as our special panel guest, he has been very helpful as a member of the NoDQ Galaxy, posting graphs with our predictions and everything. So, Noah, welcome to our video today. How's it going, man?
Going very well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, today's topic for the panel is discontinued pay-per-view concepts, and this can also include promotions outside of WWE. These are pay-per-view events that no longer exist, and what we'll do today is talk about some of our favorite and least favorite moments from these pay-per-views, and also whether or not these pay-per-view concepts should be brought back at some point. So the first one I would like to discuss is probably the most popular discontinued pay-per-view concept, and that's King of the Ring. King of the Ring started off in the 80s as a non-pay-per-view tournament, and then in 1993 it officially launched as an annual pay-per-view event. Now, in 2002, it was discontinued. That was the final one. WWE did bring back the occasional King of the Ring pay-per-view that wasn't part, well, not of a pay-per-view, but just as a random tournament. So the question is, first of all, I want to get your guys' opinions on your favorite and perhaps least favorite King of the Ring pay-per-view. And then I want to ask you guys too, should this be brought back as a pay-per-view concept instead of being brought back as just a random tournament every now and then? So Virtue, I want to start with you. Favorite King of the Ring, and is there any King of the Ring tournament that you thought was complete garbage, or maybe many of them?
Well, the ones they did on Raw and stuff when they weren't pay-per-views anymore, those were garbage. But in terms of the actual pay-per-views, I mean, Brett was made. Well, Brett was already made, but Brett and Owen were the first two. I think Brett won it 2 years in a row, correct?
No, Brett just
Cass?
won it once.
Okay,
Well,
I don't know why I thought he won it twice.
Won the off-air one in 91. They skipped 92, and he won the pay-per-view in 93.
That's what I was thinking of. And then, of course, Owen, and then, of course, Steve Austin. I mean, that was probably my favorite one. In 98, I liked too because of the Foley. You know, I just that was a car wreck, unbelievable. But that wasn't the King of the Ring tournament, even though they had one at that show. So I think Austin winning and when he got to cut that promo on Jake afterwards, Austin was to the races. So that was memorable. Bring it back. In my opinion, discontinue Money in the Bank. Bring back King of the Ring and also have the Queen of the Ring. I don't know how they can do that, to be honest with you. That would be a lot, unless they did a lot of the stuff on TV and then just had the last couple matches of the tournaments at the pay-per-view. Then they could do both King and Queen of the Ring. I say replace it with Money in the Bank. To me, Money in the Bank's outdated already, but that's me.
All right, well, that's Virtue's opinion on that. Noah, let's get your thoughts on King of the Ring. Any memories you have of the pay-per-view, anything that stands out to you, and would you like to see it brought back as a pay-per-view?
I actually would like to see it brought back as a pay-per-view. Virtue basically covered the biggest highlight I could think of when Austin 316 was born. And then you also covered the iconic Hell in a Cell match from 1998. I remember a couple of other highlights from other shows that I was like, meh. I mean, McMahon's regained control. You had Undertaker and The Rock in 1999. Wasn't there like a Kiss My Foot match, I think, in the early 90s as well?
No, that was at In Your House.
What?
That was at an In Your House.
Oh, okay.
Was it?
But yeah.
Yeah, Bret Hart and Jerry Lawler and the Kiss My Foot match was, I think it was In Your House 1, actually.
In 1995. But anyway, yeah, I missed this concept. And honestly, if they were going to do a mixed match challenge type thing, maybe they could just do it with King of the Ring and crown a real King and Queen of the Ring. And hopefully that could lead to like some real storylines or faction or regime forming. And we get something different.
Yeah, I agree on that, definitely. Chris Cass, your thoughts on the King of the Ring pay-per-view concept?
Well, I was looking up to see if I was right about the Kiss My
You
Foot
were
match.
wrong.
Oh, I was. Damn.
It
My
was
bad.
King of the Ring 95. So there you go.
Oh.
I'm like, wait a minute. I could have sworn it was the 95
What
King
it
of the Ring.
was.
Well, it's a good thing we're not playing each other on WTC right now, Aaron, or else I would have lost.
I know, right?
But going into this, so speaking of 1995 King of the Ring, I will get to that in a second. But the worst King of the Ring pay-per-view, I say hands down, is King of the Ring. Or no, sorry, would be King of the Ring 99 if King of the Ring 1995 didn't exist, because 99 had such a forgettable tournament. Billy Gunn went absolutely nowhere, and it didn't do anything for anyone on that show. Like, there was a Rock Undertaker match that you would have forgot about if you weren't watching at the time, because it was overshadowed by McMahon versus Austin,
Right.
which, I mean, was the stupidest thing ever with that briefcase, like, going up and down and all that stuff, and it didn't go anywhere. It led to the end of the era at the next pay-per-view. But King of the Ring 1995, when you're King of the Ring final, like coming off 2 hot years of Brett and Owen, is Savio Vega versus Mabel, then your pay-per-view absolutely sucks. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure if you just looked it up, I think the main event was a tag match, which was like, I think Diesel and Bam Bam against, was it Shawn and Sid maybe? But
Maybe.
altogether, that was just,
95 was just a bad year for WWF.
it was all in general. That was just a terrible show. But my favorite one would have to be 2001, based on like the tournament. Like, they only did the last 3 matches, but it was great. I mean, you had Shane and Kurt pretty much kill each other. The triple threat with Angle, Benoit, and Jericho was great, even though Benoit got injured in it. I mean, that could have been so much more going into the Invasion, but that would have been my favorite one.
Yeah, I thought that 2001 was a great one for that Shane McMahon Kurt Angle match. Noah, what were you going to say?
Didn't Booker T make like his debut on that or something like that?
Yeah, that was when he came out and attacked Vince. So, if the Invasion ended up living up to the hype, that would have been a really historic moment.
Did Angle win 01? He did, didn't he?
Oh, Edge.
What year did Angle win?
2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would have been nice to see Angle win back-to-back, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the pay-per-view part of King of the Ring ever won it back-to-back, but I know Brett did win that off-air one. I just thought that the concept was really cool, and I think the 93 one, the original, is still my all-time favorite in terms of the quality of the tournament, and I liked Brett winning, and then the aftermath with Jerry Lawler beating down Brett. 94 was great, too, with Owen, of course, winning King of the Ring. That was a very memorable moment. 95, I think, almost killed the concept dead because of how bad it was, and then it rebounded in 96 with Austin. 97 had Triple H winning. We had 98 with Shamrock winning. That one was decent, but overshadowed by the Hell in a Cell match. 99 was dumb with Billy Gunn winning, and then 2000, Kurt Angle won it. 2001, we had Edge win it, and then 2002, Brock Lesnar won it. So we had a lot of big names have their breakout performances at King of the Ring, like Edge as a single star and Brock Lesnar. So the thing I liked about King of the Ring, I liked the concept of it being like the summer version of the Royal Rumble, where the winner of King of the Ring would get a championship main event spot at SummerSlam. That's why I would be an advocate for bringing back King of the Ring. I like the tournaments. I like doing it once a year. It's something different. If you're going to do themed pay-per-views, you should do something like a King of the Ring pay-per-view and have the winner get that championship opportunity and actually have it mean something. So I would bring it back in the June spot. Winner gets the SummerSlam main event. And maybe you could do a Queen of the Ring too, but that could be considered overkill. We'll have to wait and see if WWE does in fact go forward with that plan that's rumored to do a Queen of the Ring type event. So let's move on from King of the Ring. The next concept I would like to discuss is Cyber Sunday, which was originally known as Taboo Tuesday.
Taboo Tuesday.
Taboo Tuesday.
Now, the idea of this pay-per-view was that it was supposed to be fan interactive. The fans could vote for matches. They could vote for stipulations. They could vote for guest referees, all sorts of different things. Now, unfortunately, it really did not catch on as a pay-per-view because the pay-per-view buy rates just weren't what WWE was hoping for. And I think that was maybe due to the fact that fans want to know what they're paying for. They don't want to tune in when they don't know what they're expecting. or what they don't know what's going to be happening at the show. So I think that was a factor why that pay-per-view did not work. Now, today, we have the network era. People are paying $10 a month. It doesn't matter. So the way I see it, they should definitely bring back Cyber Sunday now more than ever with Facebook and Twitter, all these different ways to interact with fans. They could have like one match be determined by Twitter votes, one match determined by YouTube votes, one match determined by Facebook votes. So I would definitely 100% bring back Cyber Sunday as a concept. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the pay-per-view, any memories of Cyber Sunday, and should it be brought back?
Well, first of all, if we're including it in here, no wonder their pay-per-view buys were so terrible, because who decides to have a pay-per-view on a Tuesday in the early 2000s? Worst idea you could ever have to begin with. They should have made it a free show on whatever network they were on at the time, Spike. But other than that, it was fun. I know when I was probably 13 around the first Taboo Tuesday, and I thought it was cool that I could vote on the matches. But I did hear, I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not, that a lot of it was worked. Maybe, but
I think it all was. But
see, they claim it was on the up and up, and there were times where you felt like, okay, this is really awkward. There's no way WWE would script this, And I felt like there were some matches and examples where that happened, but they always claimed that it was always legitimate voting. So
there was a few confusing ones. I think in 2008, I think it was Triple H and Umaga, and they had steel cage. Who's voting for a no disqualification match over a steel cage? Are you kidding me?
Well, fans are fickle, as Daniel Bryan might say.
Yes.
Fickle.
A lot of good matches got almost wasted because they weren't watched. In 2005, you had Angle, Cena, and Michaels in a three-way, which on paper, great match, but barely anyone saw it because they decided to have a pay-per-view on a Tuesday with a match like that. 2006 had the Champions of Champions match where you voted on what title was on the line, and Booker T won because he's the one that voted as the thing, which I still think that one, if any of them, is the biggest work ever because the guy whose title is on the line won. How do you book around that waiting for votes 10 minutes before the match? But it was a good concept that just poorly executed. A lot of the times when they did the future fan voting on Raw, it was even bad too, where they would sway your vote or make things way too close. Okay, what do you want to have? No holds barred, no disqualification, or street fight? The same match. What do you lie to me?
Yeah, that was pretty lame. So if they do bring it back, I would say, yeah, you gotta rethink this a little bit. So are you yes or no on bringing back the concept?
Bring back the concept, but it has to be more favorable, and maybe use the Twitter votes, hashtags and stuff, because that's what everyone's using now to rate polls. But you bring it back, but you got to do it right, and no stupid stuff like that where things are way too close together and it's all the same thing.
Yeah, I agree on that. Noah, your thoughts on Cyber Sunday as a concept and any favorite memories of it, and would you like to see it brought back?
I don't know if I necessarily want to see it brought back, but I feel like they were trying to maybe keep it alive with the whole Raw Active thing they had for a while under the AJ Lee manager reign. You had those various pulls on Raw, for example. As far as memories, you had the Legends beat the Spear Squad for the titles. I forget what year that was.
Maybe 2006?
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. And then the other thing that sticks out, and Kevin Federline helped friggin' Booker T.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't help the argument for bringing back Cyber Sunday when WWE puts
honestly,
stuff like that.
I don't think we need it back.
All right. Well, Virtue.
The only thing I can remember is I was impressed with the Shelton Benjamin and Chris Jericho match. Was that the Taboo Tuesday? I can't remember when that was. It was for the Intercontinental Championship, and my boy Jericho put over Shelton Benjamin, I believe. And I like that because Shelton Benjamin, for the longest time was in the world's greatest tag team with Charlie Haas. They were Angle students, so it was good to see them branch off in singles, especially Benjamin. So that's really all I remember, but absolutely no way, shape, or form should they bring this back. The fans should not be allowed to decide what they want. It's WWE, damn it. So, no. Because to me, if they allowed it,
right,
there's no way they're going to allow the fans what they want. It's going to be scripted. They're going to tell the fans, you voted, but it's still going to be what they wanted. And Aaron, I still think they did what maybe you thought wasn't scripted just to fool you. I think WWE never had real results for this, and they knew going in what every match was going to be. That's me. It's the world of Vince McMahon.
The thing is, on television, they would try to book the matches a certain way, try to sway people to vote a certain way through the booking. So I do think it was legitimate, and there were times here and there where I think WWE was surprised by the way fans voted and like, oh crap.
Speaking of that, like I think it might have been in Jericho's second book. He said about the Shelton Benjamin match that this is Jericho. He may be working everyone, knowing him, but he said that he had no idea who he was facing when he went out there. And when they announced Shelton Benjamin was coming out, he went to whatever referee it was and was like, "Hey, what's his finish?" Because he allegedly had no idea, according to him.
Right. So he could.
He's the master of lying, though. He's a worker. I love it. Star.
You never know with Jericho. All right, so mixed feelings about Cyber Sunday. What do you guys think watching this video? Yes or no? Leave a comment and give us your
feedback. Didn't like the name, though. You know, Aaron, it's like a bunch of people wanted to have internet sex. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. It was a crappy Taboo Tuesday, okay, but Cyber Sunday.
How about Fan Frenzy, where the fans are getting so worked up about being able to pick their own matches that they go into a frenzy?
That sounds like a more appropriate name.
All right, well, thank you for that. I take credit for coming up with that name, by the way. All right, so we'll move on here. I wanted to discuss a couple of WCW concepts, since I did mention at the start of the video that we could talk about non-WWE pay-per-view concepts. So Virtue, I know you and I had talked about this a little bit. I mean, is there anything that stands out to you in particular, like a WCW concept? Like, obviously they're doing Starrcade as a house show, but I'm talking about like taking an actual WCW pay-per-view and making it a yearly thing as a full-blown pay-per-view event. Anything you would like to see?
Halloween Havoc, because I mean, it just, with the Halloween setting, the big pumpkins, the bats, the cool setting, I love that time of year. But honestly, I don't like the pay-per-views WWE gives us. Oh, what, Hell in a Cell or Armageddon? We've had, different ones. Make Halloween Havoc the week of Halloween every year. Have a cool looking set. That, I mean, and it's simple. It wasn't really a fancy pay-per-view other than the name and the set, but that was classic. Every time October rolled around, I was like, wow, I got to watch this WCW pay-per-view, even though there's some crappy things that happened at WCW Halloween Havoc, like, I don't know, the Ultimate Warrior Hulk Hogan flash paper. What was it? DDP Goldberg, the finish not airing.
Off the air.
But nonetheless, the name is, Vince owns it. Why not use it? It's cool. Yeah. Halloween Havoc.
I like it. I like the idea of, doing pay-per-views that fit whatever the time of year is, like Halloween Havoc, instead of doing Hell in a Cell or TLC or whatever. The problem, though, I think with bringing it back would be one of the cool things about Halloween Havoc, like you said, the big set with the giant pumpkin and the scary bats and all sorts of crazy things going on. Would they really do anything like that now, or would it just be the generic HD screens that they use for every single pay-per-view? Yeah, I mean, you're like, whatever.
A CGI pumpkin, or those 3D graphics they project onto the stage now in the pay-per-views of a pumpkin.
That's exactly what it would probably be.
Virtual reality, people.
See, those were the good old days when we had those badass sets that fit the theme of the pay-per-view. But Noah, any thoughts on Halloween Havoc? Would you like to see it brought back, or any other WCW pay-per-views you would think that would be really cool to see again on a WWE broadcast?
At this point, I think he hit the nail on the head. The first one in my mind was definitely Halloween Havoc as well. I love the sets. I gotta admit, born in the 90s, I grew up WWF, so I didn't watch a lot of WCW. So I'm still learning about its history and the shows and the pay-per-views on the network. I've seen a few Bash at the Beach. I've seen Starrcade. But out of what I've seen so far, I would definitely let's see Halloween Havoc back, if nothing else but for the set. I'm tired of generic crap.
I agree on that. Now, what about Bash at the Beach? You did bring that one up. I would love to see, I know WWE is always trying to make a lot of money, and WCW did not make a lot of money from Bash at the Beach, but because at least that one show where they actually held it on the beach. But that's what I would like to see. Like, one thing that I thought was really cool about WCW, what Eric Bischoff did, was when he had those events like on the beach for Bash at the Beach, and even though they didn't make money like the Road Wild pay-per-views, just doing something different. Like every now and then I like to see something take place outside of an arena environment, whether it's on the beach or Sturgis or Club La Vila, where they did the spring break episodes in Nitro. Just change things up a little bit. I'd love to see like Bash at the Beach in July on the actual beach, and hell, charge people for it. Charge them a general admission for the show, and that way you at least make some money for it. Just change things up a little bit. I think it would make for a different vibe, and just give people a reason to tune in because they're seeing something different than what they're used to. But Chris, we'll pass it over to you. Any thoughts on any of the WCW concepts that perhaps you would like to see WWE implement?
So basically what you guys already said, Bash at the Beach, Halloween Havoc. Even if you want to fill an arena with sand, give me those damn stages with that pumpkin and the giant gargoyle. On the other side...
That's what it was, a gargoyle.
Yeah, so on the other side, because gargoyles were big at that time, good cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Road Wild. Pay-per-views were all right to decent. Worst idea ever. Cool venue, cool concept, but it's a terrible idea to have 10,000 bikers who don't give a shit about wrestling, revving their engines the entire show, and you can't hear anything.
Right.
That's all because Eric Bischoff loves motorcycles, and he's like, we're having it at Sturgis.
Right.
We're doing it because I love motorcycles.
But at least he was trying something different, so I applaud him for the effort. But I agree with you. Like, that's definitely one I would not ever consider bringing back.
What about the big ripoff of them all, World War III?
That was next on my list.
Ooh, the three-ring battle royal.
Boom, there you go. Take it away.
Okay, so they did it 4 times. I believe out of the 4 times, the world title was never on the line on this show. I think Goldberg sat at home before Starrcade
was it
98.
the first one to crown the new world champion?
That's the one Savage won, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, because Hogan was pulled under the bottom rope, and he thought, he had won the match, but then Savage, the referees thought Hogan was eliminated, which is...
It's been a while since I watched that one, but... All the other ones, I think, were to decide who got a future title shot. Like, I believe the Giant won the next year. He got his title shot at Sold Out.
Scott
Hall won in 97, got
Kevin
his
Nash.
I think he had to wait till, uncensored.
Yeah, he did. And Kevin Nash won, and then, of course, beat Goldberg and ended the streak.
Yeah. But I thought that was a cool idea when they did with the last one to have the winner go into Starrcade, because Starrcade actually meant something. It's the one year, I guess, they kind of did rip off the Royal Rumble. But the only thing is you can't do 3 rings with 60 guys and expect someone to follow all of that. Right. Especially when guys in there, like the 25, 30 luchadors they had that usually wrestled on Saturday night. Like, it just didn't work. You can't have that many people on one screen and expect someone to follow that, especially when it'd be clearly obvious who was going to win one of the 3 rings, because you had Kevin Nash in there with, like, Lenny Lane and Lodi. What do you expect?
Right. Yeah, that one was too much of a train wreck, I think, to bring back. I mean, again, I applaud WCW for trying something different, and I'd like to see more of that in the future, but I don't think I would bring back World War III. I think the 2 I would consider would be Halloween Havoc and Bash at the Beach, and then just leave it at that. So let's move on here. How about we talk a little bit about ECW, and maybe there are some concepts from ECW that you guys might want to see again, or perhaps One Night Stand. Should WWE possibly bring back One Night Stand, or is it too late now? I mean, all those ECW guys are way too old, and I don't think it would be worth bringing back. But any memories of One Night Stand, and could you see any version of that ever coming back? Noah, let's start with you. Any thoughts on the ECW pay-per-views or One Night Stand or any of that stuff?
Well, One Night Stand was definitely a stick out, 2006 especially. I remember the whole draft promo beforehand between Paul Heyman and Mick Foley, where Paul Heyman drafted like Kurt Angle to the new ECW. They talked about the new ECW brand. By the way, that's dead now. But I wouldn't mind seeing One Night Stand maybe like as an anniversary thing, maybe one more time, just celebrating the whole concept that it brought, because you're right. A lot of those guys, they're pretty much retired or dead. I feel like the only one you could get, if you could get somebody, is Tommy Dreamer. So as far as bringing it back, not really.
I mean, what if they
RVD.
did like... Yeah, I was going to say RVD. Like, what if they did like one show...
Like retired? He doesn't even wrestle anymore.
It'll work if someone pays him.
Pretty much. But what if they did one show a year at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and not necessarily do matches with the old guys like Sandman or Sabu or whatever,
Right.
but actually do a pay-per-view like you said, Noah, maybe
What
like,
about NXT One Night Stand?
where
from
it's
there?
like all the matches are under like Extreme Rules, or they have some kind of,
that
something
crowd
like
would be
Hammerstein,
hot.
That
Hammerstein
would be
Ballroom.
Oh, I would love that.
if they would have done
I
like
bring up NXT.
over next year in there. That would have been great.
Like
Sanity and Nikki Cross would be a perfect fit on a show like that too.
Yeah. Well, what do you think, Virtue? Like, would you like to see like a NXT /
Yes, that
ECW style
name,
pay-per-view?
that environment. Because let's go back to Cena and RVD. I remember Lance Storm and Chris Jericho, I think, on that same show. JBL on the balcony, so much heat, and I don't know how they could do it with today's generation. But if you did like NXT people, and then you had maybe some main roster people invade it, to watch them from the balconies and stuff, that would be cool. Like, yeah, you want to be in our leagues? Just, kind of the same concept. So that would be cool. That environment, that hostile environment would be awesome to watch. I mean, just go back and watch. Was that 06, guys?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. Just go back and watch that on the network. You'll know exactly what if you've never seen it.
All right, Chris Cass, your thoughts.
Well, it was actually the 2005 one where they had the Raw and SmackDown guys on the balcony trying to like cut the show out. But yeah, like One Night Stand was the first two great pay-per-views, and they switched it over and kind of like just kept One Night Stand going, which eventually became Extreme Rules. But the 07 and 08 ones, absolutely terrible. Nothing great happened at all. Like, I think the 07 was main evented by John Cena and Great Khali.
Yeah.
The first two, great. Had amazing moments with those guys, but you should never... It's past its prime. Like, I mean, most of those guys are out of shape, fat, or dead outside of, like, RVD, as we mentioned. TNA tried to do it with Hardcore Justice, I think, at the early 2010, around that era, and it was nothing. I think it was one of their lowest rated pay-per-views of that year.
Right.
But I mean, we're all forgetting the worst ECW pay-per-view of all time, December to Dismember.
I was
Right.
trying to forget it.
Which was the worst pay-per-view of all time for ECW, counting anything they've ever done for any form of ECW. When you're going into a show and you only announce 2 matches beforehand, then there's obviously a problem here, especially when one of the matches isn't even about your brand, when they had the Hardys and Eminem.
Yeah.
It was a terrible thing, and I think ECW, they're just going to lay it to rest. Cool concept, ECW, fun to remember, past its prime now.
All right, gotcha. All right, so Chris, you did mention TNA, so I figured we could talk about a few TNA concepts. The one that stands out the most to me is Lockdown, and TNA has basically stopped doing pay-per-views with the exception of Bound for Glory and Slammiversary, and they're doing this January pay-per-view, but they've pretty much given up on doing those types of pay-per-views. Now, what do you think about the general concept of doing all the matches inside a steel cage? That was the whole Lockdown concept, that every match was in a cage. I thought it was totally unnecessary. I was never really a fan of that pay-per-view concept, but any memories of Lockdown, or would you like to see that concept with all the matches being cage matches happening again? Noah, let's start with you. Your thoughts.
I would not want to see an all steel cage pay-per-view. If WWE comes up with a name of a pay-per-view called Steel Cage, I'm not watching it. Lockdown was a cool concept, though, as a main event match itself, though, with 2 teams going in intervals, kind of, then you have the roof coming down with the weaponry. I enjoyed, to an extent, the whole Team Dixie versus Team NNA 1, the Immortal versus Sting's faction. There were a couple of good Lockdown matches, but as far as bringing it back as an entire pay-per-view concept, no.
All right. Chris, your thoughts on Lockdown?
I remember the first one, they didn't actually officially announce it was all going to be steel cage matches. It was kind of later on. They were like, screw it, everything's in a cage. Maybe it's due to the 6-sided steel was really hard to set up, but they just don't want to take it down and set it back up again. But that first Lockdown was great. I mean, the AJ Abyss match is probably one of my favorite matches on that show. And some of them, they added good stipulations, like Jeff and Raven had a tables match of that show inside of a steel cage, which I thought was really cool. But then you had like duds of things, like when they did the LAX Dudley Boys electrified steel cage with terrible pyrotechnics and sound effects. Absolutely terrible. But have every, if you want to call it Lockdown and have like 1 or 2 cage matches, like have like a cage match for the title and the Lethal Lockdown one between 2 like factions or a group of guys that are fighting, because it was the closest thing to War Games we had for like for like however long it was between WCW did it and WWE did it. But I mean, Lockdown. If TNA brought it back, I don't think anyone would complain as long as they didn't do every match in a steel cage. I'm welcome to it, but other than that, like, I don't know if we can still mention other TNA pay-per-views, but I want to give a shout-out to the worst TNA pay-per-view of all time, Turning Point 2008, which was broadcast from Canada and had AJ Styles' MMA fight, Frank Trigg, in the worst fucking showcase. Sorry. Bleep.
Beep.
Demonetized.
Demonetized.
The worst showcase of AJ Styles that TNA could have ever done with Twinkle Toes.
That sounds really, really bad. Now, Virtue, he did take a knock at your boy Vince Russo with that electrified steel cage match. I believe they chanted "Fire Russo." So, do you remember this?
But see, that's the thing. Russo came up with that concept, but the ring technicians and the people that couldn't get it right, that's not Russo's fault. I mean, they don't have a budget. I mean, so it is what it is. But TNA, come on. I'm not even going to talk about TNA. Lockdown. I don't even want Hell in a Cell anymore or Elimination Chamber. It's overexposure of these structures. They should only bring these in when it's needed at any pay-per-view when it's needed, not call the pay-per-view that. I just don't like it. Was Lockdown fully enclosed at the top, or was it open? Because why do I remember Kurt Angle moonsaulting off the top of the cage in TNA?
He did.
Yeah, that was my most memorable moment.
All right.
TNA.
Now, there were some pay-per-views that WWE attempted to do around 2008, 2009. They started doing these themed pay-per-views, and thankfully they did give up on some of them, like Fatal 4-Way. You know, as Noah mentioned, if they start doing a pay-per-view called Steel Cage, I'm just done. I'm totally done. But yeah, they had Fatal 4-Way, and they had a bunch of other pay-per-views, and you know, they had Unforgiven. I think it was Unforgiven where they had that championship scramble. So that wasn't actually a pay-per-view concept per se, but it was a type of match that they did one year. And I've heard people talk about the championship scramble, and maybe it should be a regular pay-per-view where they do it once a year. So maybe we could get your guys' opinion on that. Chris Cass, your thoughts on the championship scramble. Would you like to see that as a pay-per-view?
Like, not as a pay-per-view, but if you want to use it, I'd say use it on, like, not the big title, use it on, like, the Intercontinental title. If you had guys like make a half an hour and all those guys that can work, like Balor, Rollins, Miz, Ziggler, like, put all those guys in there, and I think it would work out really well. Because I thought the championship scramble was a good idea. They haven't done it since they did an ECW one at, I think it was the Bash in 2009.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great idea. I mean, the guy who came up with it, Mike Adamle, don't want to talk about him. But Fatal 4-Way, I did write down in my notes here, is probably the worst of those that they came up with. I mean, it's probably the only one that still doesn't exist. I can't remember the other ones that they did, but the Fatal 4-Way thing was stupid to begin with. I don't know why they would name a pay-per-view after Fatal 4-Way, but I'd like to see the championship scramble come back just for the whole idea, because it kind of reminded me of the old WrestleMania 16 Hardcore Battle Royal, where it was just, here's 15, 20 minutes. Whoever gets the last pin is the champion.
All right. Noah, your thoughts on the championship scramble and what he was saying, like Fatal 4-Way, and there's a couple other ones that were really bad that I seem to remember. But your thoughts on that one in particular?
Fatal 4-Way is about as relevant as I could actually remember. But I do remember the championship scrambles. I always thought if they were to bring that back, it would definitely work more, like you said, as a hardcore championship type standpoint. But maybe they could use it like for a mid-card title. Lord knows both mid-card titles mean nothing right now. Sorry.
That's all right. Virtue, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, a Fatal 4-Way as a pay-per-view name is like calling it Steel Cage, right? That's the type of a match. Horrible concept. Now, Unforgiven, wasn't that around before? I remember Undertaker, Biker Taker coming back at an Unforgiven or something.
I thought that was Judgment Day, which they're basically
maybe it was Judgment Day, but I remember a couple Unforgivens, though, and the Undertaker was always themed around it. But this one in 2008 with the Scramble matches in Cleveland, I was there. It made sense calling the pay-per-view Unforgiven because of the Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels street fight or storyline. What was cool about that is they had that match early, and you're thinking, well, it probably should have been the main event because, you know, that's what's Unforgiven. Well, Shawn beat the crap out of Jericho. Jericho ended up getting his way into the match later on and won the title. That was cool. That was unexpected. I was there. I popped for that. But the Scramble match in general, I didn't care about him. The only reason why I did is because Jericho snuck his way in because Punk got hurt backstage, and Jericho became the world champ the same night Shawn Michaels beat the crap out of him.
Hey, it gave us Brian Kemp as WWE champion for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, but none of those counted unless you were that after the bell ring. So I don't know.
Yeah, there were there were some pretty lame ones that I hope never ever come back. Like Over the Limit, that one was just ridiculous to me. Like
R-Truth was in that one, wasn't he?
No, that was Capital Punishment. Yeah, that one was another one. Like
it was just a one-off.
Yeah, some of those one-offs. Yeah, that one was. Like, what were the worst one-off pay-per-views? Capital Punishment has to be towards the top of the list. And one
Breaking
that was
Point?
Breaking Point. Man, was that the one with all the submissions? I think that was the submission-themed pay-per-view. We can talk about that now. I say no, don't bring that one back. That was pretty lame. I think that was 2009.
It was. They had the I Quit match between Orton and Cena.
Yeah, and then Undertaker and CM Punk in a submission match.
It did have the cool, I thought was a concept, which I'd like to see brought in for submission guys, is they had the Legacy and DX in a submissions count anywhere match, which I thought was cool because like work with different things in the arena. Like I think they went backstage, like wrap a guy's leg around the popcorn machine, and like I thought it was a cool concept.
Right, if you do that match as a standalone, but I'm not really a fan of like that as a themed pay-per-view, so I'm glad they did not bring back that concept. But Chris, any other discontinued pay-per-views that you would like to acknowledge in any way, good or bad?
I kind of do miss the whole concept of the in-your-house pay-per-views where most of them up until like 98, 97 were named after what was going on at the time, which I think was a great idea because, each one stood out as what it was. Like, you had in-your-house Buried Alive was, the Buried Alive match.
Right.
Mind Games had like Mankind. There was a couple of them like they would have like stupid ones like Mother's Day Mayhem or something. But I
St. Valentine's Day Massacre, was that in your house?
Yes,
it was.
It was considered an in your house, even though a lot of them like I know Backlash came from being was originally an in your house pay-per-view. Unforgiven was an in your house pay-per-view.
That's probably what I was thinking of.
Yeah, the first one was in April of '98, and then they switched it to September in the next year. But all those in your house, I love the whole idea of just naming each show based on what's going on. Like when you brought up about Sean and HBK or Sean and Y2J being the Unforgiven thing because it was named after the pay-per-view. And I just love the idea of pay-per-views being named after what's going on.
I like it a lot. I think that would work. Like if there is a Hell in a Cell match, you can say, hey, this is in your house Hell in a Cell. And you just do it that one time, and you don't keep doing it over and over again as a yearly thing.
I'm glad they moved Hell in a Cell to September, so there's no you're promoting this by barbaric structure, and then boom, pink rope in the middle.
Yeah, I agree on that. Virtue, anything else you would like to add?
There's a couple. Name-wise, just because of the history of some of the cool matches that I remember, I like the name No Mercy as a pay-per-view. They got rid of that. I remember the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and then Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels in one of the greatest modern-day ladder matches of all time. So I like that name, No Mercy. I mean, it really wasn't a theme. But I would think Night of Champions, because let's have all the champions finally get to have the titles on the line on the pay-per-view. Question is, though, if they ever did that again, what title matches would be on the kickoff? You know what I mean? That'd be so unfair to them.
The SmackDown tag team titles.
If it's run by Vince.
Probably the crew. But I mean, that would be. When was the last Night of Champions? A couple years ago?
Well, they turned it into Clash of Champions, which is a knockoff of WCW.
Yeah, Night of Champions, and every title's defended. I kind of like that.
See, I think every pay-per-view should have the titles defended, as far as I'm concerned. But Noah, anything else you would like to add?
I was thinking about actually New Year's Revolution. There was 3 of those, I believe. And then another one that definitely sticks out to me that had some great years, No Way Out.
Yeah, I agree on No Way Out for sure. And I liked it better than Elimination Chamber. I think No Way Out is a cool name associated with an Elimination Chamber type of match, rather than just call it Elimination Chamber. So, Yeah, No Way Out is
Yeah,
a
the
cool
most
sounding.
extreme match from that was definitely 2005, the barbed wire steel cage.
Oh, that was Big Show and JBL, right, Chris Cass?
Yes, and where Big Show chokeslammed JBL through the mat, and JBL crawled out of the apron underneath before
Yeah.
Big Show escaped.
Yeah, that was an interesting match. I did watch that back. Like, I don't remember watching the pay-per-view live because I'm like, I'm not buying a pay-per-view to see these guys, but I did watch it back in recent years, and I actually thought it was a pretty decent match. So,
Correct me if I'm
Ooh,
wrong.
shot.
They didn't use the barbed wire at all. I think it might have been like one spot where they might have like put his face in it, but that's about it. They didn't really use the barbed wire.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but anyways, if there's nothing else anybody wants to bring up, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Anybody have anything else they would like to add? If not, we'll go.
I
ahead
like the name Vengeance also because that's where Chris Jericho became the first undisputed champion.
Well, interestingly enough, I think Vengeance became Night of Champions, and then that eventually became Clash of Champions. So kind of funny how that works out. But
Yep,
all right,
there you go.
we'll go ahead and wrap up this video. I would like to thank the NoDQ panel for giving their insight regarding all the discontinued pay-per-views. Let us know, again, on NoDQ.com, on YouTube, which pay-per-views you would like to see brought back, which ones you think are best off staying dead, like Fatal 4-Way. Leave a comment, give your feedback. Let's go ahead and do the plugs. Noah, thank you so much for everything you've done, being part of the NoDQ Galaxy, doing the graphs for us for the pay-per-view predictions. We'll have to add you now to the list since you're part of the team. So thank you again, Noah, and go ahead with your plugs.
Y'all want to talk about wrestling? Look me up on Twitter at nfoster1916. That's all I have.
All right, and I'll have to make a nodq.com/Noah for you so people can get easy access to your Twitter page.
Thanks.
All right, Chris Cass.
All right, same thing. I don't tweet very often, but when I do, it's sometimes interesting. But you can follow me at CASS on Twitter. I don't know. Do I have a link yet, Aaron?
I think it's nodq.com/Cass.
Okay, well,
It gives him hits for no DQ. You better have it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, well, go there. Type that in first. Don't type in doubles. /Cass is way better. Also, go on the shirt website, nodq.com/shirt. Buy everyone's shirts. I have a shirt now. I don't have it yet because Canada Post sucks. But you can buy a Virtue shirt over there. Or you can buy the Galaxy shirt that Noah's wearing.
Let's see that Galaxy shirt so everybody at home can watch
There
what
you
it's
go.
all about. There we go.
Yeah, where's Virtue on there?
You're
I
there
think it's
somewhere.
down there towards the
It'll be right there on the top. There under Galaxy. Oh no,
And to everyone watching, the rule is if
Steve-O.
it's on it, you have to buy it.
Yeah, right? All right, Virtue, your plugs.
Twitter at NoDQ_Virtue, and you will experience the Virtue experience. Facebook, NoDQ.com/Virtue with a lowercase v.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Of course, stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest wrestling news and rumors. Subscribe. Tell a friend about this video. Please spread the word. And that's all I got. We will see you all next time.